Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stories by Heart. Today, I have a story that might just change the way you look at your goals and your life. It's about how the smallest, most ordinary actions can lead to the most extraordinary results. Are you ready to be inspired? Let's begin. There was once a young man named Rohan. He was ambitious and full of dreams. He wanted a life that was successful, a life that was meaningful. But every single day he felt utterly and completely stuck. He would spend hours thinking big, imagining all the incredible things he wanted to achieve, but when it came to taking action, he found himself paralyzed. The gap between where he was and where he wanted to be felt like a vast, impossible ocean. One sunny afternoon, while walking through his town with his head down, feeling the weight of his own inaction, Rohan encountered an old, wise teacher. The teacher, who had observed Rohan's quiet frustration for some time, approached him with a gentle smile. "Rohan," he said, his voice calm and steady, "you seem troubled. What weighs so heavily on your mind?" Rohan, surprised by the directness of the question, confessed his feelings. "I dream of doing great things," he explained, "but I feel like I'm not making any progress. My goals are so huge, I don't even know where to start." The teacher listened patiently, then replied with a simple, profound truth. "Extraordinary lives are not built in a single day, my boy. They are not the result of one giant leap. They are built brick by brick, with tiny efforts repeated consistently, day after day." Rohan was puzzled. His mind was so fixed on grand gestures and monumental achievements. "Tiny efforts?" he asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Can small actions really make any difference? They feel so insignificant." The teacher's smile widened. He gestured towards a magnificent oak tree that stood tall in the town square. "Look at that tree," he said. "Do you think it appeared overnight?" "No, it started as a single tiny acorn. A single seed doesn't become a mighty tree in a flash. But with a little water, a little sunlight, and consistent care, every single day it grows. It pushes through the soil, strengthens its roots, and reaches for the sky. Your life works in exactly the same way." The teacher continued, "Don't despise the small beginnings. A single page read is the start of a library of knowledge. A single sentence written is the start of a book. A single step taken is the start of a long and wonderful journey. The power isn't in the size of the action, but in the consistency of the repetition." A spark of understanding ignited within Rohan. The teacher's analogy of the seed and the tree resonated deep within him. For the first time, he saw a path forward that didn't feel so overwhelming. It wasn't about climbing the entire mountain in one go. It was about taking one small, manageable step. Inspired by this newfound perspective, Rohan decided to put the teacher's wisdom into practice. He committed to taking just one small action every single day toward his goals. He didn't try to change everything at once. He started small, ridiculously small. His plan was simple. First, he would read for just 15 minutes each morning. Not a whole book, just 15 minutes. Second, he would practice one skill related to his dreams for 20 minutes. Not for hours until he was exhausted, just a focused 20 minutes. And finally, before going to sleep, he would spend 5 minutes reflecting on one small improvement he could make the next day. One tiny tweak, one little adjustment. At first, it felt almost pointless. The changes were invisible to the naked eye. After a few days, he looked in the mirror and saw the same Rohan. He checked his progress, and it felt like nothing significant had changed. The temptation to quit, to go back to just dreaming big, was strong. But he remembered the teacher's words about the seed, and he persisted. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Rohan began to notice small shifts. Those 15 minutes of daily reading had accumulated into several books. His knowledge on subjects he was passionate about had deepened. Those 20-minute practice sessions were sharpening his skills, making him more competent and capable, and his nightly reflections were making him more self-aware, helping him fine-tune his approach. His confidence, which had been so brittle, was beginning to strengthen. He realized that these tiny, consistent efforts were like compounding interest. They were stacking up, one on top of the other, building momentum and creating a foundation for something much, much bigger than he had ever imagined. Whenever he felt impatient, whenever he looked at others who seemed to be achieving success overnight, he would take a deep breath and remind himself of the mantra that had become his guide. Extraordinary lives are the sum of ordinary efforts done every day. He learned to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. He found joy in the simple act of showing up for himself each day, of planting that one small seed. The daily routine was no longer a chore. It was a ritual of self-investment, a quiet promise he made to his future self. Months later, Rohan's life had transformed in ways he couldn't have predicted. He was no longer the frustrated young man paralyzed by his ambitions. He was active, engaged, and making real, tangible progress. He was achieving things he once only dreamed of, not because of a single heroic effort or a stroke of luck, but because he had patiently and persistently laid the groundwork, day by day. One evening, an old friend who hadn't seen him in a while was astonished by his transformation. "Rohan, how did you do it?" the friend asked, genuinely amazed. "How did you achieve so much? It seems like you changed overnight." Rohan smiled, a genuine, confident smile that reached his eyes. He thought back to the conversation with the old teacher under the oak tree. "It wasn't overnight," he replied calmly. "I started small. Every single day I just did one tiny thing toward my dreams. One page, one practice session, one small step. Slowly, day by day, it all added up. That's the secret. That's how tiny efforts build extraordinary lives." So, what is that one tiny seed you can plant today? What is that one small, consistent action you can take toward your own extraordinary life? Remember Rohan's story. It's not about giant leaps. It's about the power of showing up day after day. Your future self will thank you for it. If this story inspired you and gave you a new perspective, please consider subscribing to Stories by Heart. We share motivational stories like this one every week to help you learn English, grow wiser, and stay inspired on your journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.